Welcome back to the Adventure Athletes podcast, world's #1 podcast for adventure athletes, celebrating those putting themselves through virtuous struggles in order to benefit the world around them. In this week's episode, I sit down with Jeff Smith, the CEO of BigMoose, the charity that I'm fundraising for. Now, Jeff is one of the most inspirational people I've ever met in my life, and if you've ever had the pleasure of meeting Jeff, you'll really understand how he just creates this belief in yourself that you just never knew was there. He'll get you signing up to do the most incredible things, and in the back of your mind, you knew that it was possible all along. In this week's episode, we talk about how BigMoose came about and how it saved 47 lives that we know of, the importance of having a mentor, how therapy creates a greater impact beyond yourself, and how Jeff climbs mountains with Parkinson's disease. Now, I give a shout out at the start of each episode to someone on Instagram that I'm following and that I'm inspired by, and this week's shout out is going to go to the Warrior Walker. He is on lap 2 of walking around the United Kingdom, being the first person to ever walk around it twice. He's just doing incredible things, and hopefully pretty soon we're going to have him on the podcast. He's just finished his second lap of Wales, so I can't imagine it'll be long now before he's finished. At the end of each episode, we set a weekly challenge for you guys, the listeners, to get involved with and just try and benefit your life in some way or another. Now, Jeff has been sneaky with these challenges, and he set you guys 2, and they're both going to benefit not just you, but BigMoose, the charity, and adventure athletes as well. So keep listening to find out more about that. And as you all know, my main fundraiser for BigMoose this year is going to be my tire flip world record attempt. So to find out more about that, check out the links in the description below. Check out my fundraising, which is also going to be in a link in the description below, and donate if you've got the money aside to do so. But for now, enjoy the podcast. I've wanted to do this podcast pretty much ever since I met you.
That's very kind of you.
Just getting you on.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. Getting you on, sharing your story and digging into BigMoose a bit more.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Jeff. I've been through therapy through BigMoose, as you know.
Yeah.
This is just me giving back to BigMoose, because what you've done for me is incredible. And then this is also going to double up as promotion for you guys.
Yeah.
Which I cannot push enough. I mention you in every single one of my podcasts.
Thank you.
In all of my posts. I talk to loads of your ambassadors and loads of people that have gone through therapy with you guys, and I'm now referring people to therapy through you, and I think I've got 5 people into therapy through BigMoose now. And
how does that make you feel personally?
Incredible.
I know that you're meant to be interviewing me, but I'll start with that question because I think it's really interesting for the general public to realise how it makes you feel by doing good yourself. So it makes you feel incredible, did you say? Yeah,
absolutely phenomenal, knowing that I'm helping out, I'm making this difference to the people around me. And this is actually a big part of the talk that I'm giving at the end of the month, like I was saying to you.
Yeah.
I've decided the topic for the talk, because I wasn't given any brief, it was just can you come and give a talk?
Yeah.
And I decided the topic for the brief is going to be around vulnerability, and that's purely based off of, I did the 496 challenge, which is when I came to see you and I was running 1 kilometre per day, corresponding with the day of the month.
Yeah.
And on day 26, I posted about how I was injured and struggling to do it. I was about 3 to 5k into my run, and I had 26 to do that day, and I just couldn't stop crying. I was trying to video myself, feeling like a failure, feeling like I'd let myself down, anyone that follows me down, BigMoose down, because I was fundraising for you guys.
Yeah.
And the response that I got back from it and how it inspired people, and one of the people it inspired, Mike Jenkins, came on my podcast afterwards. He joined up with me on the last day of my 496, and he was like, that message was so powerful. And since then, he signed up through therapy with BigMoose. He's
Wow.
fundraising for you guys, and
Wow.
he's seen the impact it has as well. And that just sort of led me to understand the power of vulnerability and the impact it has, not just on yourself and relieving that stress from yourself,
Yeah.
but inspiring others around you and letting them know that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, and not to always be strong, and especially with men's mental health. I think as a man, and in a world of sometimes toxic masculinity, I think sometimes we try to stay brave and stay strong and not want to appear vulnerable because we fear it.
Yeah.
But I think you're completely correct in saying what you're saying about the fact that by sharing your vulnerability, you can inspire other people, and probably specifically other men, to actually go, I'm going to reach out, and you've got proof of it, which makes me quite emotional, to be honest. It's just amazing to see the power of what talking up and actually speaking out about the kind of things that affect us all can have to inspire people to actually take that step. So I think what you're doing is extremely brave, but hopefully you can see that the results of your bravery are really worth it. So I think the honesty and transparency that you're showing the world is amazing. So well done.
Oh, thank you. I sort of learnt that through coming to therapy with you guys, because I've done therapy before and I was always a bit resistant to it. Like, sharing your personal life with a stranger is never going to be easy, but when I learnt to be vulnerable through therapy,
Yeah.
that's when I got the best results, and that's when I made an impact on myself. So seeing that and then asking other people to go through that vulnerability,
Yeah.
I feel like I had to show it publicly in order to get the message across.
Do you feel it's given you confidence?
Massively. I did not think I'd ever be like on the receiving end of a podcast, but since sharing that, I've now done 2 podcasts as a guest,
Yeah.
which sounds weird because like I'm so used to hosting it that people just assume, oh, I'll be fine on the other end of it, but it's so different. And then I'm, like I said, I'm giving a talk at the end of the month. I've never done any public speaking before, so it's something I never thought I'd ever have the confidence to do.
That's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think I was actually going to ask you that, to ask you whether the therapy and the therapists had actually inspired you to take that kind of action, and if they have, from the sound of it, they have. I think that's another byproduct of the therapy that you've received, which is phenomenal. So I think these are all tiny grains of sand going on the positive side of the scale, and they're like organic growth is just touching multiple people, which is phenomenal. I love it. I love watching these kinds of stories and listening to how the sort of effect of what you've gone through and you're being honest with yourself and the world affects somebody else, who then there's a podcast and then he's doing some fundraising, and it all goes around in a really brilliant circular motion, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of the desire and the fire to do it has come from my interactions with BigMoose.
Amazing.
Like I said, I went to therapy with you guys and that was a big help. But I remember coming to see you in January to talk through like how I can support you, trying to get you on the podcast and everything. And then just the way you inspire people to get out and do the things that they know they're capable of, but like hidden in their brain, and the impact that I've seen you have on so many people, and everyone I talk to says the same. Everyone that's met you is like, Jeff just gets you to do these things that you're not quite sure if you can do. And
I just bully people in a nice way.
Yeah, it's just, I've never seen anyone have that impact on people, and I felt it leaving that room with you, being like, right, I need to get more listeners on the podcast because the impact it's having on me is incredible, so imagine what it can do for others. And then also having the belief that I could fundraise £10,000 for you guys, where I've never really fundraised before. Like, I think I've tried it a couple of times and I've raised maybe up to £100.
Yeah.
And I'm already at over 800 mark now, so I'm coming up to 10% of my goal.
So you can do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you think it's about belief, or do you think it's about having somebody to support you and go, you can do it, and encourage you?
I think it's a mix of both. I think without
It's a great answer.
Yeah, without the latter, the former wouldn't exist.
I think sometimes we're all guilty of underestimating the power of our communities. So I think it's about being brave. And there's often, when I talk to people, there's doubt and fear of failure. But I think if you aim for £100 fundraising and you get it, that's amazing, and that's phenomenal. But if you raise more with a goal of 10,000 but you get to 6,000 within your time frame, that's still an amazing amount. So we've had people that have said that they were going to fundraise a certain amount but haven't managed to get to the total, but they've stretched themselves massively. So I think personally it's probably my mantra really, is about dreaming big and not being scared of failing. It's a little bit like the Ultra Fun Run that we've just launched and we're just about to have on Sunday. We had a team meeting where we were talking about the race itself, or the fun run itself, and the design of it and what it looked like, and everybody was bought into what it was going to look like. But we were a little bit away from each other on the amount of people that we were hoping to have as a target. And we were sort of talking in our team meeting and talking about 100, maybe 200, possibly 250 people to attend and take part, because it's our inaugural event. But I just had a belief that if you sell something well and you sell it on how good it's going to be and the amount of love that's going to be in the race and the whole sort of design of what it's about, and bringing people together and making people aware of what BigMoose is about, and the transparency of referrals and therapists and what the fundraising actually goes to, I just had this belief that people would follow us and join us, and if we made it affordable for everybody and we made it inclusive for everybody, that the power of that would just attract a lot of people. So we sort of stuck a flag in the sand and went, right, we're going to try and get 1,000 people, which was lofty as a goal for a first event. But as you're probably aware, we've managed to reach that target, and everybody in the office and everybody on the team and everybody in our community has just fallen in love with the fact that the event has been driving for 1,000, and actually I think we've got about 1,050 people now. So everybody's getting FOMO. They're all sort of going, I've forgotten to sign up, and they're all sort of jumping on the list, waiting list. But I think by having lofty aspirations, whether you're flipping a tyre or whether you're aiming to do a race, I think it doesn't matter. If we'd have only got 600 people, that still would have been phenomenal. Whereas what we've managed to do by dreaming big and following our dream and having people like yourself on the team is we've shown that you can actually achieve some amazing success, which I think in life is kind of, you need to lead and you need to show people what you can do. And I know that you're doing some amazing work, so I think you're probably pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. But that's amazing, and I think everybody listening to this should at some point do something that scares them, because by putting that flag in the sand and saying we're going to get 1,000 runners, we could have failed and I'd have been the one with egg on my face because we've only got 600 or 700 or whatever. But I don't mind being brave, and I don't mind failing, because I don't actually see life as being a failure if you don't achieve something. I think it's either a win and you achieve it, or you learn. So I think if whichever one of those I can actually take away from anything I ever aim for, I'm happy with.
Yeah.
If that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. Where do you feel you get that sort of belief and mindset from? Because a lot of people that are listening, they'll probably be hesitant to take that first step, and there's going to be points in people's lives where they won't be out and be brave. How have you developed that within yourself?
It's a great question. I think I've always been like it. I think it's been an inherent part of my DNA. I can remember when I was 21 and a very young man, and I'd read a lot of business books, and I kind of aspired to become some form of businessman. I didn't know what I was going to end up being, but I was always very interested in business. And at the time, as a 21-year-old in North London, I decided that I wanted to buy a property, and I wanted to buy my first flat. And everybody around me was saying, it's the wrong time to buy, it's a dangerous thing to do. The job that I was in at the time, working for a film company, was quite precarious. There were lots of redundancies, and there were lots of naysayers who were trying to talk me out of it. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the crab syndrome, where people don't want you to be successful and don't want you to do things that they can't actually have the courage to actually do. So I thought about it, and I thought, well, if I make the commitment to buy this flat, what's the worst that's going to happen? I get made redundant, I lose my job, and I'll have to sell it. Hopefully I won't lose too much money, but I thought it's a time for me to make a decision and be brave. So I bought it and then moved on in a year and a half's time, because the property market went up, which was not through any intelligent planning on my part, it was just pure luck. But I think I sold it for £59,000 and then bought another flat. So by being brave and actually taking that step, and I'm not advocating that everybody goes and buys a flat or a property, because that's not always within the scopes of people's abilities, but I think it was just being brave enough to work out and calculate what the worst case scenario would be. Some of the things that I've done in my recent sort of adventures have been a little bit more precarious from a danger perspective, a bit more risky when you're sort of doing things like mountains, especially when you've got Parkinsons. Have been a little bit precarious, but I've always made sure that I try to risk assess in the best possible way. So going back to the ultra fun run, what was the worst that was going to happen? We only got 300 people, and I'd been aiming for 1,000. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? People are going to laugh at me. Am I scared of people laughing at me? Absolutely not. I'd rather take the risk, and it's about measuring the odds of the risk. And if your risk is that it's only going to be that you've just not managed to get to your goal, I don't think that's worth jeopardising the risk. So I think sometimes, and going back to your question, I think everybody listening to this podcast should do something within the next few months, give themselves a goal in life to do something. If they all aim to do one thing that they've never done or never always wanted to do but have never actually had the courage to do because of fear of failure, imposter syndrome, whatever it is that stopped them from doing things, we could actually get every listener of yours to do something amazing and then come back to you and go, I've done this because of your podcast. And that's the power of your community, I think.
Yeah. I have had one person reach out since starting the podcast and saying that he was on an incredible journey before. He was massively obese, couldn't do like 100-metre run, and in the space of 12 months he's gone from that to running an ultramarathon. And
do I know him?
Andrew James.
From?
He's from, I feel like he's from Newport.
Okay, don't think I know him, but that sounds an amazing story.
Yeah, so he was on that journey anyway, and he came on the podcast. He had listened to a few episodes. I got made aware of him from one of the previous guests.
Yeah.
And he was saying how listening to this podcast and being a guest and getting to know the rest of the community, because we've got like a little group chat as well now.
Yeah.
And he's saying how he's now inspired to push out of his comfort zone again. He sort of went from sitting on the sofa to running like comfortably half marathons, and then he got sort of stuck there.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I can do trail marathons that don't have cut-off times and ultras that don't have cut-offs, but anything with a cut-off, like, I'm not fast enough for.
Yeah.
But since then he's been signing up to more events, and he's been pushing and being like, you know what, I am going to sign up to something with a cut-off and see if I can do it. And that's just from listening and doing things like we're saying.
How powerful is that?
Oh, it's incredible.
How does that make you feel personally?
Like I'm a part of something bigger than myself.
Absolutely, which is just amazing.
Yeah, and he's going on to do amazing things. I believe he might actually be trying to do some fundraising for BigMoose as well now, because I've put him on to you guys too.
You turned into a Jeff bully.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening. Is I just keep getting other people into BigMoose, and this is one of the things I actually wanted to ask about. Is BigMoose now, to me, looking from the outside in, seems like this massive company and organisation, and they're doing such lofty and aspiring things that you think is a massive team behind it.
It's not.
But it's this small little group of people in Cardiff, and it's a really small, close-knit thing. Like, how are you getting it to have such a great impact from such a small place?
Another great question. I think it's down to our culture. I think we've grown in personnel from where it was just myself and Chloe starting off a number of years ago to really ramping it up when we started to sort of push ourselves out and get really brave and do Project 1 Million. So I think from the initial start of Project 1 Million to where we are today, we've grown exponentially from a fundraising perspective, but also from a staffing perspective, and we now have 6 girls working with us, which is a wonderful team. But it's about the culture. It's about making sure that we grow those young individuals that are coming through the business. From a personal perspective, as a 61-year-old man working with a lot of Gen Zs, I did some research on how to lead Gen Z, because I want to resonate with the people that we're employing and get them on board with what we're doing. One of the major things that I learnt about was that I needed to earn their respect. And I had a conversation with one of our members of staff who's 23, and I was talking to her about this conversation that we were having, and she said, what did you learn about how to sort of inspire Gen Zs? And I said it was about learning to get respect, and she said, you've got it, which made me feel very proud. And I think that you have to put in, you can't just lead with a stick. You have to inspire the staff around you and the people that you've got in your community. And I think it's very much like the dreaming big and having the lofty aspirations and showing the team that we can dream big and aim for 1,000 people. And with Project 1 Million, where we've sort of talked to the team and said we're going to try and raise £1 million in a year. And when you're successful at those kinds of things, then hopefully people believe in whatever you suggest to them, and they believe in themselves as well. It's very much about growing the people that work with us and within our environment. So we've got everybody a mentor. So all the girls have got mentors, and they've got some phenomenal women that are able to mentor them, which I think is a very important part of life. If I'd have had my life to live over again, I would have made sure that I had mentors all the way along the line, which I never did have.
Yeah.
But I think the power of mentorship is amazing. If you look at people like Oprah Winfrey, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, they're all billionaires, but they all still have mentors. So I think it proves that mentorship is an amazing thing. So I think, you know, with some of the stuff that you're doing with your talking, I think if you could potentially look at mentoring people as well that are struggling, I think that's another opportunity that you might find that you get some benefit as well as the people that you're mentoring. So I think it's amazing to build a culture around that sort of personal growth side of things. And I think that going back to what you were talking about with the power of the strength that BigMoose have got, I think we punch very much above our weight. We've got a very small team, but a very passionate and committed team. And bearing in mind that I've been self-employed for nearly 40 years, I've never worked with a team as strong and as powerful and as committed and loyal as the team that we've got. And I think that shows up in everything that we do. So every event that we do, whatever it looks like, I think we're always striving for excellence. And if we can achieve it, then I think people see that on the outside and they gravitate towards us and want to be in the gang, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So going into the mentorship stuff then, how would you search for mentors if you're someone like me, for example, with my public talking?
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing with it. and I also have no idea who to reach out to get mentorship. How would you approach that?
I think it's research. I think, again, dreaming big. So if you find somebody that resonates with you, so I think on a personal level, I look for skills and qualities in a mentor that I want to aspire to be, whatever that looks like. It's about making sure that, you know, if the person that's going to mentor you has got some immoral ways of going about, that's probably not going to resonate with yourself or myself. So I make sure that if I've got somebody that's mentoring me, that they're wholesome, they dream big, they've done some great stuff in their life, and they're not afraid of telling me where I'm going wrong.
Yeah.
Because I want leadership. I want somebody to go, that's the wrong thing to be doing. You should be doing this. And I think sometimes with being mentored, it's not about making the big changes on the dial. It's just about making small changes, little tiny 1 degree changes, little shifts. It's about the marginal gains. Same as, you know, Sky cycling team, where Dave Brailsford went in and did the marginal gains and did the small changes. I think that's very important, and I think a great mentor can hopefully bring that to the table. But I think in answer to your question about where you find them, I think it's very personal. I think if I was in your shoes, I would just do tons of research and find somebody that would find out what's important to you, then go out and research on LinkedIn, on Google, and just find somebody that you go, he or she is somebody that I would love to have mentoring me. And the brave bit, which is the bit that people sometimes struggle with, is just ask. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? He or she's going to say no. That's not going to hurt you physically. Might hurt you a little bit emotionally. I'm sure you're big enough to get over that. But I don't know anybody that we've asked for our team. We might just be fortunate, but I don't know anybody that we've asked to actually mentor our team that we've had say no. And I think it's often an honour. And I think it's also something that as you evolve in your athletic life or your business life or your emotional life, I think that if you can give back to people, which is exactly what we're all doing with BigMoose, it's about giving back. And I think that sometimes people that are successful, hopefully, if they're the kind of people that you want to get to mentor you, would see it as an opportunity and an honour to mentor. So I think just ask, and you might be surprised.
Yeah.
Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. That is a really...
Got anybody in mind that you might ask?
Not on the public speaking side of things. I'll need to do some looking into that stuff. For my personal training and the sort of big challenges I do,
yeah,
I've always aspired to be a bit more like Ross Edgley, the guy that swam around Britain.
Yeah, I'm aware of him.
And I went to one of his talks in Cardiff a few years back and like got up on stage with him and stuff. So I've met him. I think.
How did that transpire? How did you get up on stage, or did you just?
So he does
stalk
these. He does these when he was doing the talk after he'd swum around Britain.
Yeah.
He was doing like a tour where it was like a bit public speaking, but mostly getting people on stage to take part in activities.
Okay.
So he could explain some sports science, but with real life examples of people there.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it was really good, and I remember I cycled there. So I was staying in Caerphilly. I cycled to Cardiff Bay, locked my bike up, turned up at the event, and I went on my own. No one wanted to go with me. No one that I knew cared about this guy that swam around Britain. They're like, yeah, whatever, he's just done a thing.
Was it with a log?
No.
Tree. Who was it that did that?
So he did a triathlon with
that's
the log.
what he did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then he swam around Britain in, I think it was like 6 months it took him to do it.
Wow. Dedication.
Yeah, and he's done a marathon, pulling a car and all sorts.
So how are you going to connect with him?
Probably just reach out to him on Instagram, try and get an email address for his like PA or whoever manages that side of things, and just...
Or find out where he is.
Yeah.
If he's doing a talk in somewhere close, like Bristol or Swansea or something, whatever, but find out he's stalking. Go up to him and just say, would you be interested? Tell him about you and ask if he'd be interested in mentoring you.
Yeah.
He's either going to get you arrested and call the police or he's going to go, yes. I think it's worth the risk.
Yeah. I'll go for it. I'll see.
So on a serious note, why don't we manifest that?
Okay.
Why don't we put a flag in the sand today and say that by the end of 2024 you're going to have Ross Edgley mentoring you?
Okay.
And if you manifest that and believe it, your community that are listening to this, because there'll be somebody listening to this podcast who'll go, I know Ross, I'll put you in touch, I'll give you his number, or I'll get him to call you. There'll be someone somewhere. It's only like that degrees of separation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Commit.
Yeah.
How are you going to commit? What's the commitment?
Get him as my mentor by the end of the year, like you said.
Easy. Let's make it happen. I'll help as well. I'll jump on have a little bit of research and see if I know anybody that's in his community.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Jeff.
I'm not promising, but I'll have a go. I'll jump on your team to help you.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be amazing, because then you can come back on your podcast when you've got him.
Yeah.
Maybe, have you thought about interviewing him as well?
I have. I've sent him some messages on Instagram trying to get him on, but no luck. But every few months I try again, because
persistency and consistency are really important in sales.
Yeah.
And I think if you just keep on and on and on, eventually he's going to read the DM, or he's going to look into you, because we're all time poor. But there'll be one time where you'll get through the armour and you'll reach him and he'll have a look at it and he'll fall in love with. That's what you got to do. You got to get him to fall in love with you.
Yeah.
And he'll go, you keep badgering me, what do you want? And then he'll hopefully help you and jump on board.
Yeah.
Could change your life.
It could. It's amazing how such little interaction can have that effect, isn't it?
Massively. And I think going back to the selling side of things, there's a saying that it's not the first time that's always going to close the sale. It's often the 11th time. It's a scientific fact that the 11th time that you actually contact somebody is the time where they react and they actually get involved and they engage, and then they eventually buy what you're offering to sell them. And what you're looking to sell him is the opportunity to mentor you. And maybe what you need to do is design how you think he could help you.
Yeah. So
that he emotionally connects to you, because I think emotional intelligence and emotional connection are really important in anything that we do in life.
Yeah.
That was a bit lofty, wasn't it? Geez, getting a bit serious here.
This is exactly what I wanted you on the podcast, Jeff. Just the way your brain works and how it's just like...
It's a bit slower these days, but we're still trying to back.
Yeah. I've never met anyone like it. Just having someone that's not just like, oh yeah, you should do this thing, but then getting you to commit, like you've just shown on the podcast. Like, it's not just, oh yeah, like, you should get a mentor. It's like, oh, who's going to be your mentor? How are you going to get them? Oh, I think you could do a bit more. Reach out this way. Oh, I'll help you by doing this. And just the way you're just actively trying to help people constantly and inspire that growth in others is something that I think is so rare these days.
But it's extremely selfish, because all I want to do is get the gratification of the fact that I've helped you, and it comes back to me in warm fuzzy feelings, and I go, yes, Will's got Ross Edgley, because how flipping cool would that be? And so I think it's very much a selfish thing from my own perspective. I want to help other people so that I can bask in that glow of warmth, which is true. But it's not just about being selfless. It's also, that's how I get my kicks and my thrills. And going back to the fundraising stuff, where we've had people that have had no belief whatsoever in the fact that they can achieve really massive goals. And then one chap in particular, I'd never met him before. I jumped on a Zoom call with him through a link of somebody, had a conversation with him, probably took 10 minutes, and he committed to fundraising 10 grand for our Project 1 Million. He did a fantastic job with his son, raised 16,000, and just loved the whole journey. So I think, apart from the fact that he's raised £16,000 for BigMoose, which will have helped put probably 40 people through therapy, so he's helped 40 people have full range of therapy. it also makes me continue to believe that you can do anything that you set your mind to. Because he didn't believe that he would be able to do the 10 grand, but with some help and some guidance. Not very much, I have to admit. I think he did most of it on his own. He managed to pull in £16,000 so all I've done is encourage him to believe in himself, which I think as a parent or as an employer, a leader of men and women, that's what my responsibilities are. The fact that I've got an ability to actually encourage people and just go, you can do this. I did some coaching after I finished playing ice hockey. I did some coaching of kids, some elite teams, and it was extremely rewarding seeing these young kids playing hockey and doing stuff that we managed to sort of teach them, and then seeing them go on to play have international careers and become professional sports people. So I think that ability to encourage people and grow people is something that I've always loved, and it's just manifesting itself in the way that we're doing with BigMoose, which seems to be growing in sort of capacity. I think what we need to do is just be careful that we don't limit ourselves on what we actually believe we can do, because I'd like to take BigMoose nationally and then potentially in my lifetime internationally. But it's going to take a lot of belief and a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of people to actually help fund us. But we've done a project 1 million, we're on project 15 million at the moment, so we're just plugging away. But we need to get a bigger tribe and a bigger community. So if there's anybody listening who wants to join in and has got any sort of links into people that want to get involved, I'd welcome them to contact us at BigMoose. There's my sales pitch.
That's what you're really here for, isn't it?
That's the only reason.
For BigMoose.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Getting those spotty t-shirts on people's backs.
Yeah, I need to grab one of them. I need to get one.
I've got 2.
Okay.
Which I completely forgot to bring with me. I got a medium and a large because you wanted a medium, but we bought a medium and a large, but I didn't bring them with me. But I will, when I leave here, I'll go back and I'll bring them back to you.
Oh, amazing! Cheers, Jeff. Can you walk me through how BigMoose started then? Because I've seen the Instagram posts, I've read about it. I know a bit about the background. Obviously, I don't know everything. I just know what's been shared. But a lot of the listeners won't know, like, how BigMoose started. They'll kind of know what you do because I'm chirping on about it every single podcast. Yeah. But yeah, I want the listeners to know more about you guys.
I'll praise it because it's probably quite a long story and I talk a lot. But the essence of it is that when I played ice hockey professionally back in my 20s, my best friend and my defenceman was a guy called Gary Clunan, and his nickname was Moose because he was a gargantuan guy, a huge guy. And Moose was my best mate, and we used to get up to all kinds of stuff when we were going through our 20s, and had a great period of life in London where we were quite a close-knit team at Streatham, and we used to sort of just go out and play hard, work hard, and we used to have some quite good success. So Moose was my best mate. I was best man at his wedding, and unfortunately we lost him 17 years ago to cancer. So I had the opportunity to say goodbye to him. So as he knew that he had days rather than weeks to go, we had an opportunity to go up to the northeast where he was living at the time and visit him and say goodbye, which I'm very pleased that I had the opportunity to talk to him and tell him some of the things that I wanted to talk to him about. And I said to him that I wanted to use the experience of losing him to be a positive action, and I didn't know what that looked like at the time. But after his passing, I kind of decided that I wanted to live the rest of my life not fearing about doing stuff and just following my dreams and not having any regrets of not doing things, because the conversation that I'd had as we parted company was very much about the fact that there were things that he would have liked to have done in his life and had them taken away from him. So those kinds of regrets I didn't want to have. So I think what his passing has done is it's inspired me to actually do stuff that I'm not going to regret. So when I get to the end of my tenure on this planet, I don't want to get to the end of it and go, I should have done that, I should have done that, and I didn't do that, and have reasons for not doing it. I want to just go all in on everything that I do. So I think that's the positive side of losing my best mate. We didn't really know what it was going to look like. We didn't have any design on how we were going to do anything. But one Christmas, Chloe, my youngest daughter, and I had a Christmas where we just felt that there was a lot of commercialism with Christmas, which didn't really fit within the way that we live our lives. And it just felt that we needed to do something. We didn't know what. We decided we wanted to give back a little bit and do something. So we found a soup kitchen helping feed homeless people, which was run 365 days a year at the back of Marks and Spencer in Cardiff. And we contacted them and said, could we come down? And the way they work it is that they have teams of people that go out every single day, but you have to commit to doing it once a month, which is a very small commitment. So Chloe and I to start with, and then more of my family and more of my friends came down. But we started going down and donating time to going out to distribute food and warm clothes and things like that to the homeless community of Cardiff, which was extremely rewarding because the commitment of the time that we were putting into it I felt was really valuable, and I got those same warm fuzzy feelings coming home every month. But what we did get was a feeling of the fact that we were only just putting a sticking plaster over the wound, and we weren't trying to heal the wound. So we did the volunteering at the homeless shelter for approximately 2 years, every month, come rain, come shine. And we brought lots of different factors to it. So we brought some hairdressers into the mix, because I'd learned that there's a guy called Mark Bustos in America who works with homeless people, and the value of giving a homeless person a haircut, believe it or not, is amazing. The fact that somebody spends 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes giving you a haircut and talking to you like hairdressers do and engaging in conversation is something that people that are living on the street and living rough don't actually get. So we saw the value in that. So I reached out to Mark Bustos. Another factor of dreaming big, I just reached out to him on Instagram and just said, I want to copy your idea, and he works out of LA. And I just asked him and said, can I nick your idea and bring it to Cardiff? And he was like, with my blessing. So I was like, cool. So we got Matthew Pritchard and a load of the guys from SWYD to come along and cut some homeless people's hair, which we did for a number of months, and the effect was phenomenal. So we did that for a while. We did a couple of drives to raise awareness and bring warm clothing coming into winter time. So we got Cotswold Outdoor, Peter Allen estate agents, a couple of other business associates of mine to get some warm clothing for people. So again, warm boots, warm socks, warm jackets, etc. brought in. So we did that for a while, and then, as I say, we did it for about 2 years, and I got to the point where I don't think this is really doing enough. Somebody needs to do more, because in that 2 year period we were seeing the same people month in, month out, which was depressing, seeing those kinds of people and us not doing any more than just providing them with food and warm clothing. So we went to London to see my eldest daughter, who was working at a place called the House of St Barnabas in Soho, which is a charity. And what they do there is they have people, it's a club, like a private members club. It's actually just closed down, unfortunately, which is a terrible shame. But the House of St Barnabas had this model where they had this private members club with restaurants, bars, art galleries, business rooms, etc. And then on the top floor of the building they have this City and Guilds course. They work with homeless people from Shelter, Centrepoint and other London-based homeless charities. And what they do is they offer this 12-week course in hospitality, and they train the people that are signposted to them from the charities, and they put them through this course, and then they get them a qualification. And once they have the qualification, the City and Guilds qualification, which they can take anywhere in the world, they then parachute them into the club and drop them into slots where they can work within the club, so as bar staff, waiters and waitresses, chefs, etc., baristas. And I fell in love with the model. Tiffany, my eldest daughter, was working at the club part-time, and I fell in love with the model and just thought, we need to do something like this in Cardiff, but I don't know what, didn't really have a clue. So we had this idea that we could potentially try and get a coffee shop in Cardiff. I don't know anything about coffee shops whatsoever, but we just had this idea that it couldn't be that difficult, hopefully, if we put our all into it. So we went to the council and asked them if they would commit to giving us a building that we could have free of charge, an empty place that we could develop and grow, and then hopefully employ some homeless people and do a job in getting people off the street and helping the epidemic that seems to be in Cardiff. And I asked I'm trying to remember his name, but I asked the then leader of the council if I could have 15 minutes of his time on Twitter, the old X or X, first lifestyle. And on Twitter he came back and said, yeah, 15 minutes only. So I went in to see him for 15 minutes, asked him about getting us a place free of charge, and he came back to us and offered us 2 places, which are fantastic, rent-free, rates-free. But what we did was I went and looked at them both, and they would only have a 12-month lease on them, and then they were going to be demolished or they were going to be let to somebody else. So we only had 12 months. And what we did was we had this opportunity, but what I felt was once we built the community and got some traction with it, we would then have to close and move somewhere else. So it didn't seem like it was a very commercially sound idea, really. It felt like we needed to do something braver. So we decided to find a property that we could get into a full commercial lease, which was quite risky because we didn't have any previous knowledge of coffee shops or actually running a business like that. But we went with our gut, and our gut was we need to do this. So we developed a coffee shop offer in 4 to 5 Frederick Street, which is 6 years down the line. We're still at bat, we're still operating, and plan has been always that we would take on people that are on rough times, need help, mental health help as well, and we can hopefully enhance their skill set and set them on the path to success in life as opposed to what they might have been experiencing before. So that was the plan, and it's worked extremely well. I've got our first little side story. I've got our first homeless chap, a guy called Kurt, who came in, and I almost feel like he's the son I never had. I've got 2 daughters, but I'm very close to Kurt, and he was our first homeless chap, and he came through aged 18. He'd been living on the shelters for a couple of years and was in a pretty dire place, and we worked with Kurt, and he messaged me a few weeks ago, and he became aware. He and I went and climbed. I took him to climb Pen y Fan, which he fell in love with. And I also indoctrinated him with my love of Bruce Springsteen. So he's a musician, a guitarist, and he's also kind of fallen in love with Bruce Springsteen. And a few weeks ago he messaged me and said, do you want to go and see Bruce in Prague? So I was like, absolutely yes. So on the 28th of May, I'm travelling to Prague to go and see Bruce Springsteen with my mate. I call him my mate now, Kurt, the first homeless person that ever came through our business, which is kind of like, I feel like we've planted a seed and it's just growing into. He lives in Germany now with his girlfriend and having a successful life, and he was probably my first experience of poor mental health within people. I didn't know very much about poor mental health or mental health in general, really. But he was struggling, and we had a conversation, and we said, and this is what has, if I'm honest, inspired us to do the mental health side of things with BigMoose. because of his struggles, we identified that he needed help. So we did some research and found a counsellor, which we paid for, and we got him into counselling. And I would take him to the counsellor in Kincoid, deliver him, wait for him for an hour, pick him up when he came out of the counselling session, and he started to get better. And the counsellor really worked. And I think I've told you this story, but I'm going to tell the podcast anyway because I love it. He was working in the coffee shop, and he and I went on a barista skills course in Bristol, so we both got a certificate. I've never made a cup of coffee since I got my certificate, but he's gone on to have a career. And we were sitting in the coffee shop upstairs in the office one day, and I thought he was on a path to being better, but he started crying, and I didn't understand why he was crying. And I looked over and I was like, "Tell me why you're crying. I don't understand. What am I missing?" And he went, "This is the first time," between tears, he said, "this is the first time in my life that I've not wanted to kill myself." And I was blown away. I've probably told that story 1,000 times, but I'm even getting emotional now. But the fact that we could actually help somebody not want to kill themselves was phenomenal. And I think Kurt's probably inspired me to do more with BigMoose. Sorry.
It's alright. You okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hitting me quite hard because I've both been homeless and suicidal.
Sorry if I've triggered you or anybody else.
Yeah, it's a real testament to what you're doing and the difference you're making in the world. Is that impact that you've had on Kurt, you've now had to countless people. And the crazy thing is, a lot of the time, you won't even know the difference you're making. There's people that I know and I've put onto BigMoose that are now constantly raving about BigMoose, and they've never met you. They don't know anything about you or Chloe. They just know about the charity. And you told me earlier that you've saved 47 lives through BigMoose.
People that have told us.
Yeah. They're just the ones that you know of. There's going to be countless others that you may never find out. And that's something that you must be incredibly proud of.
Yeah, in short, yeah. And it's also so powerful that it inspires me to do my best every single day of my life. The ability to actually help, because it's not about me, it's about the team, it's about people like you, it's about people like the Valor Foundation who have backed us. It's about one massive community. I think that the power of community is phenomenal, and the fact that we get to see the feedback from people telling us that we've saved their lives, it blows my mind. I kind of think of the impact that losing one person would have, because they estimate that each person has a close network of approximately 500 people. But I think with social media and people that know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, I think that figure's bigger. But if you think of the impact that losing somebody would have on those people, and that's a piece of work that's really important, is about postvention. So there's prevention, there's postvention, and I think that when you lose somebody, the impact of the postvention is extremely powerful, and it can drive people negatively. So by saving somebody, and the prevention is so powerful, so powerful. So I think you're right in what you say. The 47 is a phenomenal number, which makes me extremely proud, probably prouder than anything I've done apart from have my kids in my life. But I think it's about the prevention stuff that is not measured, and we can't know what the number looks like, but I just think it's just so powerful, and it drives me every day.
Yeah. And this is another thing that I love about BigMoose personally, is not only have I seen the impact it has on people, so I know that my fundraising, and this is why I'm happy to try and commit to raise as much money as physically possible for what you guys do, because I believe in it, is I've seen the impact it has on people. I've been through the therapy with you guys, and I know the impact it's had on me. But for people that might not need therapy, that are also fundraising or looking at committing to doing stuff with BigMoose, I've seen the impact it's had on my network. Like I said, I've got Mike through therapy. He's one person that I know for sure has gone through therapy through you guys. I've had my mum's reached out to me and been like, oh, what's the contacts for BigMoose? I've got someone that needs help, and they're completely lost. They've got nowhere to turn to. And I've sent them across, and I know that they've signed up through therapy with you guys. I've got like countless other examples where I've seen firsthand the impact that it has and how easy it is to get involved with you guys. So yeah, it's just, you know, the money's going straight to where it's needed. It's not like with a lot of other charities that I've helped out before, you never see where that money's going. You have no idea what they've done with your money. You're just like, oh, I've given to a charity. But with you guys, I know exactly where it's going and what it's helping with.
We try to be as transparent as possible. So recently we had somebody who did some fundraising for us, and we actually measured. And what we did was we took the money that she'd raised and apportioned it to individual people that were coming through the therapy. So as somebody new came through the system and was referred, we ring-fenced them and their course of therapy via the amount of money that she'd raised. And I think we got 5 people on that program, and one of them got to graduation with just 2 sessions. Literally 2 sessions, and they were back on the right track. So we applied the rest of the money to a 6th person, and the 6th person went through the course of therapy and actually came out the other end. And this, we couldn't have planned it any better, to be honest, but the 6th person that came through the system was actually a life saved, and told us at the end of the course of therapy that we'd saved their life. So we did a little PDF and we presented it to the girl that did the fundraising, and it was quite emotional. So I think that's the kind of thing that we need to promote doing more of. So when people like yourself and some of our bigger fundraisers actually get involved in businesses, we need to sort of ring fence so that you can actually almost see transparently where your money's going and the amount of people that it's helping. Because I referred to emotional connection a little earlier, but I think if you can connect, and I think sometimes with other charities, and I don't want to be critical, but I think because some charities are so big, it's very difficult for them to actually show any emotional connection to what your money's looking to do. I remember I did some fundraising for a charity probably 10 years ago now, and I raised quite a significant amount of money, but once we transferred it over, there was nothing for me to actually get the warm fuzziness from. And I think we all need that warm fuzzy feeling, and when we gave the warm fuzzy feeling to the girl that I just spoke about, she was close to tears by just seeing what the value of what she'd actually had done to the other 6 humans that she'd helped. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of want to become disruptors in the charity sector. I'm not scared of disrupting, I'm not scared of doing it a different way, probably shown by our courage or madness to actually try and raise £1 million in a year. I think probably most chief execs of other charities would probably balk at the risk assessment of getting that wrong, whereas we're brave and we're like, we're going to raise £1 million, and then we set out and we do it. And I think that's disruptive in the marketplace with charities, but I think that's what probably sets us apart, because that transparency is really important, and I think people will resonate with us because of the fact they can see what we're doing with their money.
Yeah.
I'm very tight. I don't like wasting money, and I certainly don't want to waste your money. or anybody else that's fundraising for us. So I'm extremely tight, and I question every decision that we make, because we've got a responsibility to the people that are doing the work for us to do the best job for them. They don't always look over our shoulder and see what we're doing, but it doesn't stop me from being the best version of the charity that we can be, and as efficient as we can be. So we'll be tight. We're sitting in 9,000 square foot of offices at the moment, which we've been sitting in for the last 18 months, thanks to BizSpace. Big shout out for them. But we've got that free of charge. So we could go and pay rent somewhere different location. We could go and buy somewhere. We could sort of set our stall out. But we've managed to negotiate a deal where we've got free accommodation, which is saving us a fortune. So I think being efficient, disrupting the market, and doing things in a simplistic way. It doesn't need to be complicated. I think sometimes bigger businesses in general complicate things. Keep it simple is a big mantra of mine.
Yeah. I honestly think what you guys is doing is just absolutely phenomenal, as I keep saying. And the fact that you are so transparent with it, and you are, you don't have to come here and tell us that you get these things for free, but you're doing it because you want to let people know, we're not spending your money on this.
No,
we're spending it.
We're never going to waste money.
Needs to be.
Never going to waste money.
Yeah. That brings me on to a fundraising question, because obviously I'm fundraising for you, but I wanted to know how other people can fundraise for you. People that I'm not doing anything special to fundraise. What can they do? Something I did actually want to share with you as well, which this is an exclusive. I've not told anyone about this yet. I'm going to be teaming up with, have you heard of Team Rockman?
Yes.
So, they do their virtual challenges.
Yes.
I'm going to be releasing a series of challenges with Team Rockman.
Amazing.
And all of the profit from that is going to go to my BigMoose fundraiser.
How sick. We need to meet them, because I've not met the guys. I know they do a lot of work with Reese and Pegasus, but I've not actually met the guys. Yeah,
Terry, incredible guy. I'll get you in contact with him.
Please do, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll love to know what you guys are doing. He's going to come to my talk actually at the end of the month. So
what date's your talk?
It is. I don't want to get this wrong.
I'm asking so I can come, but also to promote it on the podcast. I'm selling for you.
Oh, cheers, Jeff. So it's on the 24th of April.
Okay.
And it's going to be 7 p.m. And it is. I'll get the location up.
Can you put it in your podcast notes for people?
Yeah, I'll put the link for the tickets and everything. Perfect. It's in a pub in Barry.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm trying to get as many people to come as possible. I know the guys at Stantal do a fantastic job with what they're doing, but I know their numbers for getting people to come to this. It's a free event, and it's going to help people with their mental health. I know their numbers are quite small.
Yeah.
So I'm doing everything I can to get as many people there as possible.
Fantastic.
And as part of my talk, I'm obviously going to be talking about my experience with BigMoose as well and promoting my fundraiser.
Yeah.
So even more reason to get along, guys.
Amazing. Fantastic. If it fits in my diary, I'll come along for sure. Be great.
Amazing. Thank you. But yeah, so talking about my fundraising, I've obviously got my tyre flip marathon, which I'm taking donations for on a Just Giving page. I've got the Team Rockman collaboration coming out with all of the profit. I'm getting nothing from it. All of that is going to go straight into my BigMoose fundraiser.
Yeah.
And I do a run club every Saturday round Llantressant, and I just ask every person that comes, just brings £1 with them. Super affordable. Just bring £1 with you.
Yeah.
It all goes to the fundraiser. So far, I've been doing it for 2 months, and I've got around £50 downstairs.
Brilliant.
Which is going to go into my fundraiser.
Fantastic. It's small steps, isn't it? It's going back to those grains of sand on the positive side of the scale. It doesn't need to be a magnificent amount, tens and hundreds of thousands, but every pound on the right side of the scale adds up to become. It's exactly what we did with the Project 1 Million. We broke it down and just went, it's 100 10,000s, and 10,000 is 100 hundreds. So once you break it down, make it into bite-sized chunks, it's easier to digest.
Yeah. So how can people do fundraising for you then? What can they do to help support BigMoose and get people through this life-changing therapy that you're providing?
Well, if we're talking on your podcast, which is your energy and your creation, why don't we get people to support you? So I don't know how many listeners you get, but why don't we just approach every listener that's listening and ask them to do something for you? And how many listeners have you got approximately?
It usually varies between sort of 1 and 200 currently.
Okay, so if we look at a downsize of 100, if everybody on the podcast commits to raising some money for you, which goes into your pot, which then goes into BigMoose, both you and I are going to win, and so is somebody else that they're going to have their mental health looked at and hopefully come through a course of therapy like you've done and bring them out the other side in a positive state of mind.
Yeah.
Just needs 100 people to commit to whatever they think they can do, whatever the size or...
Yeah. I do have a team set up on Just Giving talking about that actually. So if anyone wants to do any fundraising, be part of this BigMoose journey that I'm on, let me know. I'll set up your personal page for the Just Giving as well, so it takes the stress out of your hands. All you'll get then is a link, a donation link that you can push. Whatever you can do, get it done on there, and then it all goes into the bigger pot like you're saying.
And then we get Ross Edgley on board, get you a mentor, jobs are good.
Sorted. Yeah, thanks for that. I think that is a good bit of advice there. So if you're listening, want a page set up, I'll set it up for you. Then we've spoken a lot about BigMoose, obviously.
Yeah.
I want to talk a bit more about you. And I know BigMoose is obviously a big part of what you do, but then you also do, you've kind of mentioned it, you do a lot in the mountains, but you do a lot in the mountains despite having Parkinson's. Like, what started your mountaineering journey? Was that like pre-Parkinson's, post-Parkinson's, and then how has Parkinson's affected that as well?
It was very much a pre-Parkinson's escapade, and it was basically created by Chloe, my daughter, that I'm now co-founder of BigMoose with. So she's been an influence on my life positively from the age of 15. So when Tiffany, who's 3 years older than Chloe, left home to go to work in Paris, Disneyland, so she was leaving our family home. We're quite a tight-knit family. She was leaving a hole in the 4-person group, and Chloe was like, I'm going to miss her massively, so I need to put a challenge into my life. And we'd not really done any challenges that I can think of as a family ever, so this was kind of news to me that she wanted to do a challenge, which was a magnificent challenge. She wanted to become the youngest woman, Welsh woman, to summit Mount Kilimanjaro. This was in 2010, so she was aged 15 at the time, which was a great challenge for her, and I worked alongside her because she needed to have a parent or a guardian go with her. She couldn't do it on her own, so I said I would come with her. We both went off to climb Kilimanjaro. She, not inspired by me whatsoever, she of her own vocation decided that she wanted to raise £10,000. Bear in mind she's 15, so she wanted to raise £10,000 for Bernardo's. And what we did was, once she told me that was what she wanted to do, I thought, again, going back to emotional connection, if we could earmark and ring fence the money that she was going to raise for the Bernardo's in Cardiff, we'd see one of their facilities and we'd understand what she was raising money for. So we reached out to Bernardo's and we went down to Canton to one of their facilities there where they have young parents with young children. So it was predominantly girls. There was one young guy there, but it was predominantly girls that were young and got fallen pregnant, been kicked out of home, hadn't had any backing from their family or their friends, and ended up in destitution. And Bernardo's had this facility where they helped them. So we went down to this facility, told them about what the adventure was going to look like and what we were going to do and what Chloe was going to do with the fundraising. And all the money that she raised would actually go to that facility, so it would enable them to do whatever they wanted to do with it. So the people that were there these young mothers and one young father, and the babies and children connected to Chloe and myself massively, which was beautiful to watch your daughter, age 15, doing. And what it did was it gave us inspiration when times got tough on the mountain. So we had a little tiny keyring, plastic keyring, with a picture of all the babies from the facility, which Chloe carried on her rucksack. And there was a point where we were close to summit, but we were really struggling. And we basically both looked at this little picture of these little babies, and it just motivated us to sort of drive on, and for Chloe to actually manage to summit Killy and become the youngest Welsh woman ever to do it. So she summited the mountain, ended up raising £15,000, and we took the money down and we distributed it with the facility in Bernardo. So looking back on it, I think that's probably been the motivation for me to understand how if you can show people the effects of what you can do for them, that draws their heart and their mind into the project much more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was my first foray into the mountains, and I'd retired from playing ice hockey a number of years prior and hadn't really done anything sort of from an adventure perspective ever, but fell in love with the mountains. And so 2010 was Killy. I then decided to go to Russia and climb a mountain called Elbrus in Russia. Chloe was doing her exams, so she missed out on that one. So I did that in 11. Did a mountain called Mount Denali in Alaska in 2012. And then decided that potentially I had the ability, possibly, to climb Everest. So I reached out to a climbing guide that I was very much a fanboy of, called Russell Bryce, Himalayan Experience were his company, and I'd seen some documentaries on TV with his stuff. And I felt that he was probably the most professional and safety conscious guy on the mountain. So I reached out to him and said that I would like to try to attempt to climb Mount Everest, and he said, I'd like you to try another 8,000 metre peak. So there are 14 8,000 metre plus peaks in the world, and these are all ones that are in the death zone, and if you're a normal mortal like I am, you have to use oxygen for. So he encouraged me to climb Mount Manaslu in 2013, which I managed to do and really enjoyed. And that was probably the first time I actually believed that I could become a climber. The other mountains were strong and I felt okay, but by actually doing an 8,000er, I think also because it was oxygen, so I had to wear a face mask with oxygen on, and it just felt very grown up, very, very adult by being a mountaineer, and it was very cool. I loved every second of it, and summited in 2013, as I said, which then gave Russ the belief that I could potentially do it in 2014. So we went back to Everest to attempt it in 2014, but unfortunately there was a massive ice fall, which unfortunately killed 16 Sherpa. So there were 16 Sherpa killed by this ice fall, probably the size of a 2-storey building, which fell and was devastating. It was my first mountaineering experience where there was death included, which was devastating. But we'd done some fundraising for it, so I came back because they closed the mountain. So I came back from Everest having only got to base camp. So I'd got to base camp, but we didn't actually step foot in the Khumbu or on the actual mountain. But they decided, out of respect, which I agree with completely, to close the mountain for 2014. So I came home. Some of my friends on the journey came home and got quite depressed at the fact that they'd had their dream taken away from them, and that they'd had the money that they'd financially committed to the actual adventure taken away from them as well. Whereas I was very fortunate, I think, because of the fundraising, and we'd got involved with Teenage Cancer Trust that year, and we ended up raising £60,000 for TCT, which kind of flicked my switch. I came back from there And I think that was the moment that I wanted to start really driving BigMoose, and we created BigMoose in 2014, like the idea of it being something tangible. So we came back in 2014 with some money for TCT, and then I spent the next couple of years moping around, not actually thinking that I could do it again, but whether it's financially or physically. And a chap who's a good friend of mine came and sat at my breakfast table one day. We were having a chat, and he said, "What are you up to at the moment?" So I said, "Well, I haven't really got anything planned, nothing in the diary." And he was like, "What do you want to do?" Using my own tactics on me. So I was like, well, I would like to do Everest again and see if I've got it in me to do Everest, because I don't know. I had it taken away from me in 14. He said, "Well, what's stopping you?" So I said, "Well, money, whether I've got to get myself in shape, blah, blah." I came up with all these crap excuses. And he was like, "So you're telling people to do things and encouraging people, but you're not actually having the courage and the balls to actually go and set out to do what you want to do, your dream, follow your dream." I was like, "I'm busted, aren't I? So I need to commit." So I literally committed there and then that I was going to do it again and see if there was any chance of summiting. So I went back in 17, trained really hard, got into good shape, felt like I was in the best place I could be at the age of 53. Decided not to do fundraising because I felt that competitive Jeff would want to do more than 60 grand. And I know my own DNA would have driven me that hard to raise more money than that. So I took away the pressure of fundraising, and what Chloe and I did was we decided that we would go around to schools, free of charge, just travel around. We went to Manchester, we went to Bath, we went to multiple South Wales schools. I think we saw just over 3,000 kids in total. And we went around and we did talks at their assemblies and went and talked to the school kids on a daily, just telling them about the dream, about the fact that 2014 was a turnaround, never to give up, and always follow your dreams and always believe that you can do anything that you set your mind out to do, with the intention of then going back once we've summited, showing them the success and showing them the sexy videos which look kind of cool when you're on the tops of the mountains. But there was always the risk. Probably worst risk was death. So if I died on the mountain, they're following me on Instagram, would be a bit of a rubbish story, but there'd also be some honesty in what the story was, and they could see that I'd given it my all, put my heart and soul into it. But it's not always what you aim for that you get. We kind of glossed over that a bit. But the kid thing and the school thing was amazing because it teed it up really nicely. So it was very enjoyable meeting the teachers, and we did some talks at some schools with teachers, did some talks with parents. So it was quite an organic, wholesome event really. So we did that for probably 6 months, and just nothing to gain from it whatsoever. There was no sort of financial gain. It was more about me, rather than putting my energy into fundraising, it was putting my energy into spreading the word, sort of how to inspire people really. So we did that. So I went over to the mountain, had a tricky 10 weeks out there because we had a false alarm where we thought we were going to summit, and we had a summit push, got to Camp 2, then the weather came in and turned us back, and in our team there were 10 of us, and 7 of them went home after that initial summit attempt, for various reasons. So it left 3 of us there, which was quite tough. Then there was a guy called Uli Steck, who was one of the most famous climbers in the world, who had been into our tent for lunch one day, went out the next day and died. So we had some death in the team. So it was quite a testing time, and being away from home for 10 weeks is quite testing in itself because it's quite monotonous when you're just killing time at base camp. So it was mentally quite a tough journey as well as physically, but eventually I was definitely with the right team. We chose the right window when to go. We got the nod, We hugged everybody really hard. Now that it's kind of weird. You say goodbye to everybody at base camp, and you don't actually know if you're coming back, which is kind of, the hugs were longer than they were before, so it was quite an emotional sort of goodbye. So fortunately we got the chance to get up to the top of the mountain, and on May the 26th at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was actually the first person on Mount Everest summit, so it was kind of cool. So we came back down. Tough coming down. I took Moose's ashes to the top because his widow had given them to me in 2014, but I obviously had not had the opportunity. But 2017 I managed to take his ashes to the top, and we videoed it. And I took my glasses off and I took my gloves off to pour this little vial of his ashes, which we did successfully. But stupidly I got frost nip, which is not as bad as frostbite, but I got frost nip in my fingers, which was kind of bad. But worse than that, I got snow blindness. So we came down the mountain to Camp 4, which is a very horrible, inhospitable place, very windy and cold and nasty, and most people just go from 4 straight to 3, then to 2. But I got to 4 and it had become apparent that my sight was deteriorating, and my guide that was with me assessed the fact that I had snow blindness, so we had to stay another night, overnight at Camp 4, which was absolutely horrible because I had to ring my wife and say, I'm all good, but I'm not coming down with the team. So we had to sort of take another day for my sight to come back and then continue the journey back down the mountain, which I did. A couple of avalanches on the way down, which were quite treacherous, and then basically got to the bottom because it was a long journey from 2014 to 2017, up, false alarm, back down, back up, successfully coming back down. And I got to the bottom of the Khumbu Icefall, and I sat down and I looked up at what we'd done with Moose, and I just literally cried my eyes out because the journey was over and it was successful, and we'd managed to do it, and we'd done what his widow had asked us to do, to take the ashes to the top. So it was a pretty amazing journey. So that's without Parkinson's. With Parkinson's, it's been quite tricky. I got diagnosed in 2020. This is going to be tough to talk about, man. So I got diagnosed in 2020, and it's quite a crap disease. It's quite debilitating, and it affects you in neurological ways, it affects you in physical ways, and in some pretty crap ways. But the way I'm trying to frame it is that I just need to do my best with it. So I've been dealt this hand of cards, and it's up to me how I play them. I can play them like a person with no mental strength, no sort of ability to play the hand well and fold, or I can continue to play and get the best out of the hand. And that's kind of where I'm going. And we talked about fundraising £1 million. That was an idea that I had with Parkinson's. We talked about ultra fun run, getting 1,000 runners. That's an idea I've had with Parkinson's. So it's not going too bad. I need to keep developing it. It's a bit crap with regards to the physical side of things. So where I've done some running stuff and I've done some mountaineering stuff, I've got to dial down my ability, and I have to recognise my weakness, and I have to understand that I'm probably not going to... If I didn't have Parkinson's, I'd probably be going off to try and climb another 8,000 metre peak because I love them. But because I've got it, I have to be a realist, and the fact I'm getting older, you know, I was 53 when I did Everest successfully. I'm 61 nearly, so I need to understand. But when you're faced with your own mortality, it's a bit crap. But I think the way to approach it is to just play that hand of cards to the best of my ability and not give up, because that's the critical thing. I think if you give up mentally, you'll probably just die really quickly. Whereas what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to go and climb a couple of smaller mountains. I've got a running challenge that I'm potentially looking at announcing in the next couple of days, which is just going to be stimulation for me, because exercise is a good stimulant for halting the onset of Parkinson's. So I can't get rid of it, it's incurable. But what I can do is I can slow it down. So by exercising on the regular, it's going to make me feel better, and it's hopefully going to reduce the onset. So that's kind of like the plan as of now. So since being diagnosed with Parkinson's, I attempted to go to, well, I did go to Argentina to climb a mountain called Aconcagua, which is 6'9", so it's quite a high mountain, but quite a safe mountain. What I did when I got my diagnosis was I hid it, so I didn't tell anybody for nearly just over 2 years, nearly 3 years, so I hid it from people. So I became aware of some of the symptoms, such as when I first got diagnosed, the guy that diagnosed me opened the door, let me walk down a corridor in front of him, and then we went into his office on the left, and I was in his office for less than 2 minutes, and he went, "You've got Parkinson's disease." And I was like, "How did you know so quickly?" He was like, basically, I walked in front of him and my left side is a bit weaker and the movement is a lot slower. So he watched me walking, my right arm was swinging, my left arm wasn't. So it's a real big giveaway. So the next year I went back for, what do you call it? Start again, Jeff. So the next year I went back for a checkup with another doctor, and as I walked in, I swung both my arms, and I basically did everything that I knew that having Parkinson's you do. I did the other thing. So there's a thing called facial masking, which probably, if this is on video, people will see that my face is a bit nondescript when it comes to emotion. Whereas in the meeting that I had with the second doctor, I was like, "Hi, how you doing?" And lots of smiling and and what it does is the Parkinson's actually causes this facial masking. So I'm being emotional behind my facial mask, but to you, you're just seeing this miserable, grumpy bastard. So it's quite tricky to handle in social situations because everybody just thinks you've got the ump. But with this doctor, I just accentuated all my eye movements and smiles, and I was like, "How you doing?" and how's things. And at the end of the session, he said to me, "If it wasn't in my notes that you got it, I would say you didn't have it." I said, "No, I'm just good at hiding it." So I did that for nearly 3 years, which was a bit rubbish, if I'm honest, because it put a lot of pressure on me every time I got into social interactions. So if it was public speaking, business interactions, just social life generally, family interactions, I'm like, "Hi, how is it going? Merry Christmas," and just sort of pushing on this sort of over-exaggerated mask or take away the mask. And it was putting so much pressure on me every time I had to go and do something because people didn't know, and I was trying not to let them find out, that it was probably affecting me more than I knew. It was tricky to cope with, so I decided that I would attempt to go and climb Aconcagua in Argentina. Plan was to summit it and then come back and go, "Just summited it, so I'm doing okay, but I've got Parkinson's. Don't feel sorry for me because I've just climbed a 6,911 metre mountain." But I didn't get to the top, so that was a bit rubbish. So we went out and did it. I told the guides, I told the company before we went, obviously, to find out if I had their permission. They said as long as I could get a doctor's certificate that I was capable of climbing, that they would allow me to. And they decided that they wouldn't tell the team, we'd just crack on. So this was based on the fact that I was hiding it from everybody. So we got to a certain point just above base camp where the trek into base camp was a bit precarious, and there was a point where I wasn't fit enough. Honest disclosure, I'd underestimated the mountain, so that was a me problem. And also my balance is pretty crap, and I just was on a very sort of knife edge ridge with the team guiding us, and I looked over the edge and I was like, if I go, that's not going to be a broken arm, that's going to be death, because it was pretty high and pretty narrow as a ridge. And I played it through in my mind, and I struggled getting across the ridge. I was okay, I did it, but mentally I was like, I've got a chance of going here more than I've ever had in my life, because my balance used to be quite good. I made a career out of having good balance on the ice. So I got to base camp and I was like, if I continue and I end up having an accident or even a fatality, number one, my kids and my family have lost me, which is crap because of me mountaineering. But then also I thought about it, and I thought the guides are going to have a loss on their resume forever, and it's a psychological effect to them, because if they're leading the group and I go over the edge and I die, they've got to handle that, which I thought was very selfish of me. And also there are the team members that are on the same trip who would have their trip, whether they summited or not, but ruined by the fact that they've always got that memory of losing the guy that was on the trip. And I just thought I was being selfish. So for me, trying to sort of bag a summit, I felt that I was over-egging it, and I thought I was being unfair to people. So I took this. I think on reflection it was the right decision to turn around and spoke to the team, and just, it was very emotional. I was actually okay about it, but the girl that was our guide, who was tough as a tough thing, was in tears and crying. She was like, I want you to continue, I want you to continue. And I was like, in broken English, and I was like, I just don't think it's fair, because my sort of desire to get to the top could affect a lot of other people. It would just stretch resources as well. So turned around, flew out in a helicopter, came home, bit dejected because I hadn't managed to summit, but proud of the fact that I'd been mature enough to turn around, take that decision. But then decided that I needed to tell people about the Parkinsons, because I wasn't being fair to them or to myself really, and I felt like once I told people it would become a bit easier to have those interactions with people. Once people know, they know. And you know, you're asking me to do the podcast, which is cool. Life cracks on. I'm still doing things I'm proud of, which is cool, and making a difference in other people's lives. And nobody's actually ostracised me for the fact that I've got a diagnosis of having Parkinson's. It's probably working in the opposite way really. It's probably helping me sort of get traction on some of the stuff that we're doing, which is good. So I decided to do a sort of statement type thing to tell people. I had to tell my family and I had to tell friends, and so I connected with all my close network of people and told them. They were all extremely supportive, which I expected, which was great. And then for my 60th birthday last July, my family got me a wing walking present. So I actually went and walked on the wing, age 60, with Parkinson's, and then did a post on Instagram and just said, this is a problem that I've had and been hiding. I want to be honest about it, tell people about it, and move on to the next chapter. And hopefully I can utilise the strength of it, and it can almost be, as somebody described to me, that it could become my superpower. So that's kind of where I am. So I've sort of come out about it, which has been a good thing. I think it's been good for me, selfishly, and most people don't really give a monkeys. Most people are just interested in how you interact with the world, really. So it hasn't made as big an impact as I thought. Not an impact, but it hasn't been as negative as I thought it might have been potentially. So that's been a good thing. And then going back to the mountains, I decided that I still needed to do, on a personal level, I need to have a goal to keep my fitness going. I'm extremely lazy when I don't have a goal. I can't get out of bed, I eat chocolate, I booze too much. Not a lot, but I definitely need to sort of have a goal in order for me to sort of get in the zone, so to speak. Whether that's a mountain or a running goal, whatever it looks like, but I need a goal. So I decided to come up with a climbing challenge. And one of our ambassadors, a girl called Adriana Brownlee, who's 22, actually 23 now, and has climbed 13 of the 14 highest peaks in the world. And she'll be doing the 14th this year, hopefully, successfully. And she'll become the youngest woman to ever do it. She's one of the BigMoose ambassadors as well. And she started a company with her boyfriend, Gelji Sherpa, who's an amazing Sherpa. So I reached out to her and said, there's a mountain called Le Boucher, which is 6'1", I believe, 6,100 metres, but a lot safer in my mindset. I've done it twice before on both the Everest trips, and my memory told me that it was a safe mountain. There weren't any sort of precarious bits, and it'd be okay for me to actually do that one. So I set out with her and got them to guide me, and went out in February, and then realised how rubbish my memory was and how dangerous it was, which I only really discovered once we got to, there's a thing called crampon point. So basically you climb in your normal boots until you get to the snow line. Once you get to the snow line, you put your crampons on, your ice boots, and you basically go across the crampon point and you continue with your crampons on. Prior to crampon point, there are a couple of places where I actually thought I was going to die again, which is really remiss of me. How my memory is so bad and just paints this glorious picture of what mountains are like when I've actually climbed them twice before was ridiculous. But yeah, there are a couple of very tricky places and passages which turning back and going down just weren't an option. So it was like, I've got to keep going. So I did beat myself up a little bit because I had not been fair on my family or myself by actually continuing to sort of go on the trip. But I'd literally forgotten how dangerous this mountain was. So we sort of continued going, climbed on the snow and the ice. We were the first ones on the mountain this season, so we were breaking trail, which made it a lot more difficult for us to climb. And there were quite a few places where it was vertical ice climbing, which means you use your front points on your crampons to dig into the ice and your ice axe to pull yourself up. And in order to do that, using a Jumar, which is a handheld device which allows you to go up safety ropes when they're there. So we had to lay ropes. So Gelji and another Sherpa that were on our team, there are only 4 of us. There was a climber called Max and myself and the 2 guides, 2 Sherpa. They were going and laying out safety ropes, but it was taking longer than anticipated because it was quite precarious, the actual climbing and getting the ice screws into the ice to get the ropes connected. So it actually took a lot longer than we'd anticipated, and we got to a point where I think we were at 5,900, so we were 200 metres away from the top, which is not far at all really, probably an hour and a half. And we just looked at the time, and Gelji made the decision that we had to come down, which was, at the time, I wasn't sure whether I thought it was the right decision or not, because I felt like I had more in the tank and I wanted the summit, but I would always listen to my guides and my Sherpas. So the fact that he decided that it was the right decision to turn around and come down was something that I had to adhere to. But since getting back down the mountain, it became apparent that it was the best decision, because what you do when you stretch yourselves and you get close to the sort of line of sort of danger is you just push yourself too far and you make a wrong step and you fall and things can go wrong. And again, that's being selfish, so it was very much the right decision. So we came back without a summit, but positively spinning it with a 5,900 metre climb, which, having Parkinsons and managing to do that, I'm extremely proud of personally. And I think what I need to do is just find somewhere that's a bit safer. So I'm not actually giving up climbing, I just need to find something safer.
Do you have any mountains in mind that you think might be achievable?
I haven't looked into it. I've been deciding on getting my next challenge, whether it's running or climbing, which tend to be my things. And I think I'm probably going to do a running challenge, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to put my focus into the running challenge, and then maybe I'll do run, climb. So I'll definitely find somewhere, but I haven't actually. I've got a dream, and Adriana's helping me try and facilitate this dream. There are still a number of unclimbed mountains in the world.
Okay.
And if you climb an unclimbed mountain, you can name it. So we could climb it, call it BigMoose Mountain, and then take teams of people out there to learn about the mountains. Doesn't need to be Everest size, doesn't need to be massively high, but just as a trip to see Nepal and get the feel of the big mountains, but then climb an unclimbed one. If we could go and do it and call it BigMoose Mountain, that would be a nice legacy that we could leave behind forever. So that's kind of a goal. She hasn't found one yet, but she's looking.
That'd be incredible.
Yeah, very much so.
Are you willing to share your running challenge with the podcast, what you've got in mind? I know you said you're probably going to announce it in the next few days.
But the podcast will go out.
It'll go out next Friday.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to announce it tomorrow. I think tomorrow is World Parkinsons Awareness Day. 11th tomorrow?
Yeah, 11th tomorrow.
So I'm probably going to announce it tomorrow. I haven't fully planned it, but I've done it once before without Parkinson's, so I think I'm just going to jump in and not think too much about it, because I might doubt it if I think too much about it. But essentially what I'm looking to do is a David Goggins challenge, which you might have heard of, the 4448, which is run. It's definitely going to be run walking for me, but to run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So it's a 2-day experiment, but you have to run or walk the 4 miles within the 4 hours. So you can't just run 48 miles in one day, you have to do it. So sleep deprivation, there's all kinds of things. I did it once, I think it was probably just as I was being diagnosed, probably back in 2020, and did it okay and enjoyed it. It was a good challenge, but I think that it's quite a tough one from a mental perspective, and it was quite challenging. I've done a bit of research into it in the past, where lots of able-bodied people without diagnosis or anything like that struggle with it, so it's quite a tough one. And I think what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to try and create a 48 club. So I'm going to probably look at doing it in July and try and encourage people to actually come along on the journey with me, not physically with me, but commit to doing it on the day that we. So I'll create a date and then go, right, we're doing it then, and then people that want to be in the 48 club just go, I'm in, and they do it wherever they live, and they just follow on, and we just build this mini community of crazy people that just want to run 48 miles in 48 hours.
Yeah. I've always wanted to do it, so I'm going to commit now. I'm doing it with you.
First one. I was hoping that you might say that, because I thought if I could joel him into doing it now, I'm going to be accused of being a bully again. But let's do it. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for the commitment.
No worries, Jeff. Yeah, I've wanted to do it for ages, and the thing that I've always used as the excuse is work, where I have to work because I coach gymnastics.
Yeah.
I can't start at the exact times.
Yeah.
But knowing that you're going to be doing it, I'm going to fit it in around my coaching. So I might not start at the exact time that we'll start, but I'll get the run done within the time frame.
Yeah, perfect. So, sounds good. Yeah. And I've got to do it now, because it's out there in the
it's out in the world now. So
game on. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Maybe what we do is we drive funds towards your page.
Okay.
So we do that as a fundraise for you.
Yeah. Yeah, more than happy for that.
Get the 48 club.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Incredible.
Cool.
all piecing together now. No, amazing. Thanks for sharing with that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's a podcast exclusive just to get a bit of engagement.
I've now got to do it, so it's
honestly, I think everything you're doing is incredible with BigMoose, with your personal life, just you as a person.
It's very kind of you.
I loved the I didn't get to come, unfortunately, but I loved the idea of the talk that you did recently, the Run for Good one.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
And I've had a lot of feedback from people saying about how amazing it was. And it also managed to get me to snipe one of the talkers to come on the podcast as well.
Good. Who did you get?
I had Cookie on.
What a lovely man.
Yeah. So the day before your event, because he was down in Cardiff anyway, I convinced him to come on the podcast the night before, do a bit of a run through of his talk, and then he came and did the talk the day after.
You're getting good at this, aren't you?
So I'm trying my best.
Ross Edgley, watch out. That's fantastic. He's a lovely man.
Yeah, absolutely incredible person.
And I've watched him over the last couple of years start to flourish and start to bloom.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot of potential in him to become an even greater person than he is. He did Why We Run with Lewis Roebling the last 2 years, but he did it last year as race director.
Yeah.
And he was amazing. Like I've not witnessed anybody be so cool at an event, and he blew my socks off. I was so impressed by his. He exceeded my expectations. I knew he was going to be good, but he just nailed it. So I'm excited to see where his career in running goes. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a great podcast.
I can imagine.
And if anyone was at the Run for Good event and wants a refresher on Cookie, then check out the podcast, because I can imagine, well, from what he was telling me, they were very similar stories that he was sharing, going through that journey that he's been through. Yeah,
he's very brave, same as you are.
Thank you. But I do want to say that, I just want to thank you so much for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
Being vulnerable. I know that's going to be the topic of my talk, but I think your story is an even more powerful one than mine about vulnerability, especially sharing with your story with Kurt, and then going into your Parkinsons and how you hid that, and how that's now you're developing it to your superpower. So thank you for sharing.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to working with you going forward.
Yeah, no worries. Something I do get every guest to do at the end of each podcast is set a challenge for the listeners for the next week. So if you could come up with a challenge for the listeners, what would it be?
To get a connection between you and Ross Edgley. Simple.
There we go. That is your challenge.
Can I ask them to do two things?
Of course.
Because the Ross Edgley one was a knee-jerk. But a secondary one is to do something outside of their comfort zone that could benefit you and your fundraising, whatever that looks like.
Okay. Yeah. Incredible.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that is perfect, Jeff. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Where can people follow your journey and what you're doing, and BigMoose, and just everything you want to promote?
Probably our socials. We use Instagram probably more than anything. So we've got BigMoose Charity on Instagram, and then Jeff runs and climbs on a personal journey, which is not that exhilarating, but we'll definitely be following the 4448 challenge, which will be taken up into July. And if this is going out next week, then if you want to join in, just message me, follow me, DM me, and we'll see if we can make something. I haven't actually planned a lot of detail around it. I'm just committing myself to doing it, but I think we've got a bit of time to make it an interesting project, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again, Jeff.
Brilliant.
And I look forward to everything you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Will.
No worries. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. If you want to find out more about our guests, check out the links in the description below, where you'll also find a link to our website, our socials, and my BigMoose fundraiser. Let us know in the comments who you want to hear from next, and we'll try and get them booked on as best we can. And if you want to get involved with anything Adventure Athletes, we've got so many things going on. We've got our programming that we'll do for people trying to take their next step into their own personal adventures. We'll do sports massage. We've got events that we're organising both online and in person, and we've got some different activity days based around getting you outdoors and learning something new. So if you want to get involved, check out the website. If you want to find out more about the guest, check out the links in the description. And yeah, let us know who you want on next.